this rendition of our Vivid Vision sessions, brought to you by Kansas City Jazz Alive. Would like to start out by thanking all of my fellow board members who are here. I know Steve Hargrave is here, Emily Burley is here, Gerald Cave is here, and Chris Burnett is here. Please let's give some love to our board members. These guys work very hard. We're all still sort of picking ourselves up from a very successful but yet busy, productive, busy, 8 days, right? Thank you. 8 days of spotlighting Charlie Parker. A lot of cool things happening. Couldn't have done it without so many of you. One of them is to let people know about this great exhibition. This is only yet 4 of 17 pieces, soon to be 21 pieces in this exhibition that is available to people all over the place. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure also to introduce you and thank her for her participation on the committee that helped to co-curate this exhibit. And that's Jen Anderson! So, information about it is up here. Of course, you know me, I don't travel without goodies, information pieces, and also we can't do this without you. It takes money to make all this stuff happen. So we want to help you happily depart with your money. And so if you would do that, there's a remittance envelope. We're trying to make it real easy for you. Cut a check, put it in the envelope, hand it to one of us, or take out some cash, put it in the envelope, hand it to one of us, and it'll help the program. Or take the envelope home and later on figure out how many zeros you want to put next to that 5,000, and send it in to Jazz Alive. Also, we want to know what you think about the programming that we do. So we created these really cool cards that Mr. McKay is going to pass around. And these cards allow you to click on a QR code and take a, what is it, 3-minute survey maybe? Maybe 3?
Depends on how fast you're reading.
Yeah, right, exactly. You're like me, it's probably a 20-minute survey. But please take the survey, let us know who you are, what you do, and it's important to us because as we apply for grants, foundation funding, corporate support, they want to know who you serve, what do they look like, where do they come from, and so this asks you some of those questions, and just let us know. It's an anonymous survey. We certainly appreciate you taking that and sharing it. So, without further ado, it gives me a great deal of pleasure on behalf of our board of directors and all of our constituents to welcome Steve Kraske, who's going to introduce the panel. Steve Kraske.
Well, hi everybody. Thanks for navigating Westport to get here. That wasn't easy, was it? Yeah. Dashing around all over the place. Hey, this is our third of 3 sessions on the topic of jazz as a societal voice. And our challenge, our topic today is a talk to our educators here about how they work with students to shape this next generation of musicians, and also in doing so, how do they ensure the future of the music, that the future of the music is in good hands going forward for a long time to come. We got a great panel here, great trio of gents. Eddie Moore is an artist, educator, with Pride Studios. Spoken to my classes before, which I appreciate. Justin Binnick is a music professor at KCK Community College, but he's a whole lot more too. He's a singer, he's a pianist, and he's a clinician. Justin? This thing on? Chris Burnett needs no introduction to this group. He's the founder and artistic director of the Kansas City Area Youth Jazz and Vice President of this organization, KC Jazz Alive, Chris Burnett. Eddie, let me start with you. And I'm just wondering, as you look at your responsibilities as a teacher over at KU, how much responsibility is on your shoulders as an educator to ensure that this music is successful going forward? How do you see it?
I speak of this? I think I have a lot of.
Just pick it up. Grab it out of that
nice.
thing.
Here we go. I think I have a lot of responsibility. I think it's a little different right now because a lot of my students are non-jazz majors, and they want jazz knowledge and language to be successful in other genres of music. And so I have a lot of responsibility so that they can go out and be the best musicians, maybe not the best jazz musicians, but they can take a little bit of that and get it from the source, which would be me, and then go off to play contemporary music or other genres.
Are you getting as many students enrolling over there as you've seen in other years?
Yeah, it's crazy. We have like 9 combos.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a lot. We have anything from jazz combo to what we call pop contemporary combo, Afro-Cuban. I do the pop combos, which I tell them is more like if you wanted to be on tour with Ariana Grande or Lady Gaga, you know, what does that look like?
And they do, probably.
Yeah, actually there's a band, group of gentlemen, they're called the Whips. They just got off a summer tour, 3 months. They've all been in the combo. They're all enrolled as non-majors at KU. They're playing the Plaza Art Fair for like the 3rd time. Their numbers are huge, just released their 3rd album.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Why are the numbers up?
You're talking about like...
At KU and why are you seeing so many students?
I think they're one of the schools in the area that's focusing on where the music is now and where the students are. They're not the only school, as you know. I play with a lot of Justin students, and it's much the same. That's just where it is. And I think just like how I knew as a young musician, moved here in 2010, if you want to be the best musician you can be, you are going to go through the jazz route at some point. You know.
That's still the route to be the best. And
Yeah,
to learn
I mean-
the music the most thoroughly.
Right, well, any music, really, because then you learn how to master improvisation over harmony. Doesn't really matter what it feels like or what the genre is. You now have that ability, and jazz language and dialect is the only way to really master that.
Yeah. Justin, at KCK Community College, how do you view your responsibility in terms of pushing the music forward, and what's on your shoulders for that?
I mean, kind of in a lot of ways, like Eddie said, a lot of the same things that really kind of dictate the way that I go about things philosophically. Like, I feel like we as educators have kind of a sort of a dual responsibility in terms of dealing with the jazz language and the jazz history and making sure that students understand that, but also, as Eddie put it, understanding what it is that our students want to do, and also not being willing to pigeonhole ourselves into a box of this is what jazz is, and whatever does not fit inside this box is not jazz. You know, it's like, so at KCK, I mean, we've got ensembles that are extremely traditional, but I direct a funk band, which actually performed at the Gen Conference last year, and I am proud to say that I'm probably the first educator ever to have programmed a Lizzo tune at the Jazz Education Network conference. But again, it boils down to the idea of, like, you know, whether we're talking jazz, whether we're talking R&B, whether we're talking pop music, whether we're talking all these things, we're talking about blues-based popular music, you know, from the Black American tradition. So, you know, it's to kind of compartmentalize things into boxes, I think, is a bit of a fool's errand. But then back to the idea of like why jazz is important. I think everything that Eddie was saying in terms of just like, you know, if you can improvise over chord changes, that translates no matter what style of music you're making. It's, you know, especially if you wanted to go more of a modern pop R&B route where the lines are just increasingly getting blurred in terms of just the mixing of genres. Really kind of a jazz education is a lot of what really helps to be able to fuse all of those things together.
Do students understand what you just said when they come into your program?
Some of them do. It's, you know, some of the students do, and then some of the students, like, you know, it's, and again, like with the funk band that I direct, like, you know, we play, like we'll do everything from classic Bill Withers stuff to like more contemporary things. But at the same time, I'm fusing jazz elements into it. Like, you know, we'll do Beyonce's Deja Vu, but it's like I'm going to put like a break in the middle of it where it's like where like the horn players in the band can actually blow over the Beyonce changes. such as they are. So, and you know, it's that it's that idea of essentially thinking of like all of this music is part of a continuum rather than it being totally segmented. But then that also reinforces the importance of having the jazz training as a part of what they do moving forward. You know, I would say especially in the rhythm section side of things, but honestly, horn players, singers as well. Like like even from a physiological perspective, it's exactly the same technique to sing an R&B run as it is to sing a bebop scat solo. It's just one has syllables and one doesn't.
Do your students coming into the program, do they have any sense of the rich jazz history that is Kansas City, Missouri?
Some of them do. Like, it depends on the schools that they come from. Like, some of our students, are in programs that take part in the Basically Basie Festival that we do as part of our jazz festival at the college. And so some of them come in from, high school programs that were very much part of the Kansas City tradition with directors that embraced that. And some of our students come in with no knowledge of kind of the rich history. And so that's part of where we have our responsibility to teach them that history.
Yeah, what's happening with enrollment in your program these days?
It's pretty awesome. We, similar to what Eddie was saying, like our program has grown, and I think one thing that both KCC and KU have in common is that and especially from my perspective, having had students at KCC who then went on to KU, is that both programs really have a sense of culture established and something of a sense of community established there. And it's the sort of thing that filters down. Like the students who are in the programs, we'll talk to they, especially some of the younger students, will talk to their friends who are still in high school and just be like, you really should check this out. So yeah, it's our numbers are really in pretty fantastic shape. I mean, we've got, as a community college, we've got 2 full big bands, 3 combos, 3 vocal jazz ensembles, the funk band that I do. Yeah. That's
encouraging. That's really encouraging.
Oh, and that's right. And I forgot about the audio engineering program as well. It's like, honestly, that might be the coolest thing about KCC is like the audio engineering facility that Ian has. It's super fab. So. Yeah.
Chris, I think I can predict your answer to this, but how much responsibility do you feel to push this music forward and work to ensure its future?
Well, I'm in a unique position.
Yes,
I'm in the private jazz education realm, which isn't established it isn't established with an institution. It's done privately, and it's off season between when they're working. We're a spring and summer program, and the reason we did it that way is to show that what we do is needed to supplement what's going on with these professors at their institutions. And we're looking mainly at competence, and that's what these gentlemen were talking about in part of their introduction to what they do. When the students who come through Kansas City Area Youth Jazz Program, or even my private studio or Greg's private studio, when they go to Eddie Moore or Dr. Justin Bennick, I don't want them not knowing how to play changes or what changes mean. And it starts at a basic element from working with musicians and making them competent. And you have to codify very complex language for people to be able to do that. And over 40 years of teaching privately, I figured out a way to explain these things to 6th and 7th graders where they are playing all forms of scales, and then when they get to be in 9th grade, they can play over changes, and it's not a big deal. And when you send them to someone like Eddie Moore after that, you've got an artist, or even a person that goes on to be a doctor, but they know what it takes to be an artist, and they have a big appreciation for it. So that's my agenda. Greg, is that your agenda as well, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Build the future
Yeah.
artists and supporters.
Next generation, that's who we work with.
Eddie, you were saying at lunch, you and I were chatting together, that the folks you're getting in your program are pretty advanced. I mean, it feels like the kids coming in, you were saying, are really ahead.
Yeah, just thinking, I grew up in Houston, so my whole experience as a teacher now is different. Essentially. So I think overall, like, the opportunity to learn jazz at a young age here is really great because of programs like this and other programs that are here. And then the city's smaller, so everything's more accessible. If those students decide to stay here and go to school, by then they're already playing with me. I already play with Jalen, and I play with Isaiah. And if you don't know these names yet, but you will. Yeah. And I'm 38 and they're 21. You know.
Chris, that strikes me as really significant to hear him saying that these students are so far down the road already, but by the time they get to KU, maybe due to the work that you and Greg do and others.
All of us are doing it.
I mean, that says something about our ecosystem.
It is. And it says what we have unique in Kansas City that I've discovered is, like, here's grandpa, father, son generation sitting on the stage, and we interact. I mean, honestly, we're in.
I'm only 6 years older than he is.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's make believe, but. But you get what I'm saying here. Okay. We've got all generations interacting. Like Eddie was saying that, and Justin, I've seen him do it too. He plays gigs with some of his former students who've been in our youth jazz program. And I remember a couple of seasons ago, we had a couple of your students, and we were working on a particular tune, and he and I had a dialogue about the reason I programmed this Pat Metheny tune that maybe normal jazzers would dismiss, but how complex it was. And Dr. Bennett says, yeah, I'll have a talk with him. And when the kid came back, he was playing over the changes using the information that we had taught him at Youth Jazz and what he had done asking Dr. Bennett, who was his teacher. And when he came back, it was fulfilling what we do in Youth Jazz. We use everyone. Eddie's a clinician. Dr. Bennett's a clinician. When they have time, we try to get them over and pay them a clinician fee, and they help us get ready to record an album. So it's a community effort, and I think that's the ecosystem that we've built here in Kansas City. And I think it's unique because I've had people outside of, from both coasts, and I have friends all over, and they're trying to model what we're doing because they see it from a distance. And if they have a conversation similar to this, we talk about what we're doing and how we all interact with the pros on the scene. And Justin, do you have any?
Yeah, and I can kind of pick up on that because I think I'm the person up here who's been in this city the least amount of time. I've only been in the Kansas City area since the fall of 2017 when I started teaching at KCK. And so prior to that, I had been in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for a few years. Before that, I was in the Philadelphia area for almost a decade. And the thing about before that, I was actually kind of in the Chicago area for a minute. And the thing about both Philly and Dallas is there are great players, there are killer players, there are amazing players in those areas, and they are really, 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 really insular. Yep.
Meaning what?
Meaning that I've got my gig.
Yep.
I'm going, it's this is my gig.
Yep.
Yeah. This is my turf. So, and it's that sounds meaner than it is, but there's also a lot of truth to that. Meanwhile, when I got to town, I ended up kind of through a series of crazy circumstances landing a regular thing at Eddie V's. And the first time that I ever played in town, it was in a trio with Brian Stever and Dominique Sanders, both of whom I kind of known through various channels differently. And to me, a fundamental difference and something that I just really appreciate right away was apparently after the gig, I guess Dominique started texting a whole bunch of people just being yo, there's this new singer and pianist in town. He's kind of dope. You should really hire him. So, and that to me was...
See that in Dallas is your point.
Maybe not as much. Well, look at this. Either way, I didn't see it. We'll just put it that way. And like I said, in Philly, I was there for nearly 10 years, but it took about 3 years to actually make any sort of inroad. And moving to Kansas City, it's no scene is perfect. Let's just say that right off the bat. No scene is perfect, but there was something just really welcoming and really special when I moved here that I felt like I could really just settle in and just like become part of the community real quick. So
Can I add something to what you just said, Doc? The thing about the scene here in Kansas City and what we're doing at different levels and different veins of it or branches of the scene, what we're trying to do is teach the younger generation how to build infrastructure, because without a gig, without a place to play, without being able to do business coherently, you're going to accept a sandwich and do a gig. Or you're not going to have any place to play. You're going to have all these chops and you're not going to have any place to play. We're teaching them how to produce concerts. We're teaching, the thesis of the youth jazz program is to record an album in a professional studio. And that's what we do every season. There are 5 albums done. And they'll stand 10 years from now when these guys are in their 30s and they go back and listen to what they did, they won't be ashamed from it or run from it. And they'll know how to produce an album, how to work with a record producer in a professional studio. They'll know how to book a gig. They'll know how to organize their sets if they've got a gig out in the community. We go out in the community and play. And we play places that would not normally hear this music. And we play before people who would not normally engage them. And they see these young kids, they're young people, but young adults, they'd see them out there and they're like, wow, that's gonna be cute. And then when they start playing, they go, oh my goodness gracious. And that's really pretty cool to see. So we've been going 5 seasons now. Instead of 1 or 2 great musicians coming out of Kansas City, there's 10, 20. A lot of the youngest generation that's out there playing now, they've come through our program, they've come through their program, they've come through their studios. And they're saying a lot of stuff, and it's because all of us are pouring into them. You all as well. By watching this or being here, you're building infrastructure for that generation, and we're teaching them how to maintain it and even expand on it. So,
and Eddie, I think you and I are definitely aligned philosophically on this one in terms of the way that we talk with our students. In terms, we are father and son. There's that.
don't forget I'm grandfather.
Yeah.
I'm grandfather.
But I think like you and I are really aligned in that like one thing that you and I both really impress on our students is that like it's not enough to be a good player. Like you have to know what you're doing in the studio. You have to be able to write music. You have to be able to promote yourself in a big fashion. Like it's not enough to just be a good musician.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I started like a studio incubator, because all the things Chris is saying are very, very true, and you see a huge jazz strength in the young generation. My thing and question has always been, so when they get to college and they decide to stay, where can they play? Where can they play their music? Who can they play it to? Can they produce the shows that they want?
There you go.
Is that possible? Is it looked upon with joy and accepting? And I think that's a big, you'd have to ask them. I hear them. We hear them.
Yep. Right.
We hear them, and that's a big thing right now.
Chris, that's what I was going to ask next. I mean, it sounds like we have this, we have a huge asset here in terms of all these talented players coming up. Is our town able to capitalize on this asset and
I think so.
to our advantage in the way we need to be?
Well, I think so. I think Eddie was just speaking to that in the term of that he plays, I don't know, it must have been a couple of weeks ago, it must have been a couple of months ago. I've been Charlie Parkering, so time has slipped away. But Eddie posted a video, we're friends on social media, and he posted a video of him playing with some of the youngest cats out there. And I'm going like, holy smokes, that is fire. I don't know if they even say that anymore. But I thought that was really cool. And it was him as a mentor bringing them into the family and making music with them. And the music that came out is different than when they play by themselves, because you have this master musician interacting with him and changing the whole alchemy of everything. It's gold, but he just turned it into 24 karat. You see what I'm saying? And that's what Kansas City has going for it. What I would like to see, and we've talked to I think every one of us sidebar have talked about this. What I would like to see is some synergy where we're all pulling that wagon at the same place, and understand that instead of there being one pie, there's infinite number of pies. Remember scarcity mentality?
That's what we
Yeah.
talked about here.
I mean, what he was doing, what Eddie was doing, I'm a big fan of Eddie Moore. And the reason I became a big fan of Eddie Moore, it was by chance. I heard him when he was a student. I think you were a grad student at UMKC, and you were playing these standards, and you were doing them differently. And I heard that. I said, who is that cat? You had really long hair then. And I said, who is that piano player? And people would say, oh, he's a student, but they would never tell me his name. And then I finally met you at the Jazz Museum one time because they hired you to do something. And we started talking, and all I could do is say, keep doing what you're doing. And he is. So, like, what is it, 10 years later or something, he's still doing that type of thing. And I've had a chance to work with Justin, so I know what kind of talent he is, and I know Justin is an artist who could be in New York, and everybody should know that. I mean, there's no question, there's no difference, but his passion is what he's doing, pouring into this next generation and keeping the music going. That's where I'm at, the same thing.
What happened to the hair?
I need to change, locks hold an energy, and I needed that energy to get to a place. And I felt that I didn't need that energy. And I appreciate the kind words.
You know me, I'm going to say it. I'm saying what I think, honestly.
And I'm glad the perspective is what you said, because the reality is I'm not the master in that group. That is not me bringing them into what I do. That's me enjoying the spirit in which they bring to me. Those are the two gentlemen that I can play with, that vibe on my level of contemporary music where I hear it. That video is an opportunity that we self-recorded because that's our only opportunity to do something like that with real freedom. So it's self-produced in a studio that I built, that Jalen Ward mixed from everything he learned at KCC. I'm being very, very real because I'm connected to them, and so I just want it to be seen like that. I am not their master or elder. We are equal. And they bring a lot to the table, no matter what age they are. So it has to be viewed as such. It's a group. We're just equal musicians sharing our love for the music. And it doesn't matter about my stature.
No, it's not. I didn't mean that like that. Yeah. What I mean is the awareness that you just said in explaining that, there's a mastery, a level of mastery that makes you aware of that. When I was 20 years old, I would not even got to anything that I'm thinking now. And I don't think they were thinking in that way. And for you to give them the opportunity is what I'm talking about. That's a master that does that.
Justin, let me challenge this a little bit here. You guys are all talking as players and as educators. I'm a consumer. And I would throw out the idea that I don't think our town is taking advantage of the level of talent that you guys are describing to me. You know, I pay as much attention as I can to what's going on, and I'm not aware of where to go to hear these people. I'm not aware of how to tap into this, and I'm thinking if we have all this here, we're missing a bet.
I don't disagree with you at all in that regard. Like, I mean, for all of the praise that I heaped on Kansas City's scene a moment ago, I also made the comment, no scene is perfect, and
now we're getting
and there are realities. Like, it's, I've had some very real conversations with my students, as I know you have as well. I would agree that, like, the scene here is better than most, and that as a music consuming community, that Kansas City is not taking advantage of the talent that is here. I think both of those are very true.
And it strikes me as an incredible opportunity that awaits us, Chris.
May I add something really quick? Our job is not necessarily to educate the consumer or the audience, but if we change the way that we do things and give the audience access to what I heard on that video they self-produced. I think they're going to make the choice. That's what I'm saying. I think that what we do in youth jazz is we make it a mandate upon them to go and be competitive with someone who's maybe not at the level you are artistically, competently, so that they can hear the difference and then make the choice on their own. I had a conversation with a gentleman named Will Matthews. Most of you guys know who he is. He's a guitar player from Kansas City. We've become very good friends over the last 20 years. Yeah, he's with the Basie Band. Right. And he's playing at his new upscale restaurant. And the people who owned it, they aren't musicians, but they are really good business people. And they wanted music there. And they asked him about if he would play there. And he said, of course, I play all different styles of music, from R&B to swing music. And they said, well, we have a musician here, and we just have music. They didn't think anything about it. So he had used that as an opportunity to say, well, yeah, that person's good. He plays in the church across from our church and all this. But if you want, Kansas City is known for jazz musicians like me and everybody else. That's who you want to hire. And he wasn't trying to put that person out of work. He was trying to help those people understand what they're dealing with. A lot of the opportunities for venues, they don't understand what we understand. They don't understand what you understand as a consumer. And the people here listening to this and listening to us talk and watching the stream, most of you already have this idea of what you like about this music that's a little bit thoughtful. And the last thing I'm going to say before I take up any more time is this is an acquired taste. It is not going to fill up Arrowhead Stadium or even Starlight necessarily. Some veins of it can, don't get me wrong, but most of it is not. So we have to take that with what goes with the calling that we did. We all had to say, okay, Chris, you're going to play this kind of jazz and 3 people and your dog are going to like it. So you've got to do something to subsidize that if you want to keep doing that. And I've made that choice over the years. I understand that. And then making the young people aware that that's a possible dynamic they're dealing with, then they have something to consider and they don't feel tricked when they've done 8 years of school and they get out and there's 50-cent gigs and nobody wants to hear them. And there's 3 people in the audience and 2 of them are their parents, you know? So I think the mandate for us is to network with more venue owners like this place. How can we, on the other side of the stage, of the lights, how can we create some kind of viable economic, well, Jazz Alive does that. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we are doing in a lot of ways. How can we make some kind of, and I use the word synergy, how can we, so that they're making money and the artists are playing, the consumer is learning about the different, everybody's using their skills toward making the culture better.
Eddie, what would you like to see happen here? How can an organization like this?
I see you chomping.
I mean, this is something very, very passionate to me. I moved here to go to grad school. I built my band here. I'm the oldest of the young dudes that still lives here from that time. Yep. And so, the future of, right now, the president of jazz is, blowing up. A lot of people are listening to it. They're listening to it from all different angles. It's not like a specific thing anymore. And we are passing a great opportunity here by not making opportunities for people to play their music and do their music the way that they see it outside of just the stage and in a live environment. What I mean by that is, when you go see a big production, no matter what it is, you see visuals. You see other aspects of art and multidisciplinary facets into that. I don't see any venues that are in our genre that foster that creativity, where it's, beneficial from a monetary standpoint for them. I hear a lot of, our students are going to college, and if they're not already playing with us, the biggest paying things are like wedding gigs and this and that, when it's like, you don't need to go to school for that. So how can we keep the future here if ultimately we're not supporting what they want to play? And I'm actually sitting here because I fought that since I moved here. And you know about me because my records fought that. And I did it outside of the realm that exists. even to this day. But I'll tell you, it was hard for me, and it's almost impossible for them. And so there has to be some type of networking or acknowledgement for the venues to get out of that state of mind that they're actually making a lot of money representing what they are now, because they're actually missing a lot of money.
Right.
They're missing a ton of money.
Right.
But you have to focus in what they want to play, and what they want to play is different. You know, it comes from us, and they're still learning jazz, but it's their time now.
Justin, hop in here, and then I'm going to introduce Amber. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, to me, this gets back to the idea of, the problem with a lot of jazz venues and with a lot of places that promote jazz music is that there is the idea of there is a box that jazz fits in. And I mean, look, we all know, part of the reason why we're all here in this room is because also, on a deep and personal level, we all love Kansas City swing. It's one of the things that this town is known for. But, it cannot be, if the music is to grow and to evolve, and if we're to provide spaces for our students who are pushing the music forward, then there needs to be a broader acceptance of the idea of what jazz can be. One of my all-time favorite quotes, and I love sharing this one with my students in terms of just the need for jazz to evolve. 1948, Louis Armstrong does a blindfold test with Metronome magazine. And so they're playing different things. It's there's some Roy Eldridge, there's some King Oliver, there's some whatever. And then they play this recording of Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians. Louis Armstrong listens to this, and his immediate response is, Guy Lombardo, it's guys like him that are saving the music from these damn beboppers. This is Louis Armstrong saying this. And unfortunately, a lot of us, teachers, promoters, club venues, can get into this mindset of jazz is this thing. And we need to promote this music this way in order to save it from these other things. So, and I think in the end, the only way for this music to grow and to evolve is to provide the space for the expansion and the evolution of the art form.
Hey, let me introduce Amber Underwood, artist, entrepreneur, educator, goes by Fluty Nastiness as her moniker. She has an added credential. She once appeared on KCUR's Up to Date with yours truly. Give it up for Amber. We're sitting here talking as you arrived about this idea. There's so much talent here in town. Is Kansas City capitalizing on that talent? Are we missing a bet by not having more places, more venues, more opportunities for these artists? I'm just curious. Grab a mic, Amber, and what are you thinking about all this?
Well, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. I apologize, I'm late. I'm an educator, so I had to deal with a situation back at work, but glad to be here. But yes, I do believe that that we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. I do believe that we do need to have some type of music initiative here in the city that supports what we are trying to say, and I think we're kind of counteracting that. I think that we need to have some type of structure that is set, that is in place, that supports not only the venues but also the musicians, because we do work hand in hand together. I also do believe that everybody needs to get on board, not just the venues and the musicians, but the city and the money and the supports that goes behind it.
What does that look like? Tell me how
So,
you see that.
only reason I'm speaking about this because I've been a part of UNESCO to where I've seen it in other cities. I've traveled outside of the country and I've seen it. I've seen it in Querétaro, Mexico. I've seen it in Chile. That's a creative music city. I've seen the creative cities like in Detroit for architectural. It's all built. We are a creative city of music, but people wouldn't know that. They think tennis Nashville. They think New Orleans, but they don't necessarily. We keep saying that, but outside of Kansas City, people. It's just we're not promoting what we're talking about, and we're not getting the support from from the higher ups, or to build that structure to be able to put out. We should be having a national or international jazz like awards, or people should be flocking here as a part of, if we have the American Jazz Museum and all these different things. This should be a key point in the history of what we're talking, of jazz. So I think it goes a little bit deeper.
You're
We
talking
have
about
to
a structure, Amber, actually at City Hall,
a structure.
Office at City Hall, or where
I'm not talking about an office. I'm talking about a structure building within the city. Like, okay, for an example, when I was in Chile, they're a music city. Once you come into the city, it's a music city. It's like everywhere in the businesses, from the businesses to the infrastructure, to it's built in. You can go over a road and you hear the music in the road. Everybody has music. You see it in the structures of music. People know that it's just everywhere you see, you feel it. People are out playing music. It's just a part of their infrastructure. And they're not erasing history that's already built in. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know how.
Yeah, like, to your point, you said it. Everyone has music.
Yeah.
So, running an incubator and teaching these young professionals how to release records, how to not only go in and write the music, but like, how do you release a record? How do you do a record campaign? How do you plan a tour? How do you really be an independent artist in your genre? How do you do that? And so an infrastructure for that, there's arts infrastructures there that I'm a part of as mentorship. We're trying to bring the jazz world to that so everybody has music. And so I guess I was trying to do that in an independent form, saying if the musicians are empowered and they do it themselves, and it'll naturally materialize because everyone will have music. And then we'll want to capitalize on that.
talking about something building upon the history that's in this town, and it's more broad than just the players. It's the people who live here recognizing and taking advantage of
Yes.
the artistry that's around us, right?
Yes, and I hear what Eddie is saying. Maybe if we take it upon ourselves, we can empower ourselves. But really, it's hard being an independent artist, and I've been one, and so. But we need everybody on board to make it work, not just.
You have to have music out, though, as an
Yes.
artist, to promote and stand the test of time, which you do have.
Yeah.
And you got to get out. That's why we know about Marquise. And that's why we know about Sean Jones. They have records. They promote records.
I think it's more than past the music. I think it's more of like, okay, music just doesn't happen between 9 to 5. Music happens 7 days a week, 365 days a year. From 12 midnight to maybe 6 in the morning. There are people that are, the clubs close at certain times, restaurants close, but there's still music happening. Why can't we have an initiative like we tried, like the airport? What about at the laundromats or at the grocery store, or when people is like, I don't work during this time, I work at nights. What if I want to hear, or work during the day or whatever, I want to hear music, but I can't get music during that time, and also having a structure set up for musicians, for employment like they would do for other jobs. This is our job. So we definitely need to have the benefits there. We need to have all of these different things there for musicians to be able to thrive as our employment. A lot of these musicians are very highly educated, and so and then also having to negotiate price with certain people of basically, well, we're going to give you this amount of money or this or that. I'm like, I spent all this money, and all this time practicing, and you're getting quality music, and yeah.
There's also there is a thing though. It's interesting that you mentioned Chile, because there's also a thing about cultural priorities and things that go into all of this. Because like I several years ago was involved with curriculum development at the Pro Jazz Institute of Music in Santiago, and so like I spent a good bit of time in Santiago, but one thing about, and you're right about, like, you know, but like Santiago and Valparaiso, both, it's like they're incredible cities from not just a musical perspective, but from an artistic perspective. But part of that deals with the fact that, like, you know, there is a, like, within the government of Chile, there is actually a music of there's actually a ministry of culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That actually, you know, serves as you know, helps to assist in terms of building both the structure, both literally and figuratively, of support,
Correct.
but then also helps serve to provide the financial support for the artists.
But this
to be
is
able
also
to do what they do.
creating jobs too for people as well, to having that structure.
Can I add something onto this? And I hope it doesn't seem like it's veering off. But what you're talking about, what I'm hearing, we have things like that, but maybe they're not serving in an applicable way. We have like Jazz Road from South Arts. We have NEA and all of this, but it's still not doing what you're describing. The closest thing that I've ever experienced to what you're describing is I did 22 years with Army jazz bands, and I didn't have to worry about any gigs. I didn't have to worry about health insurance. I didn't have to worry about a living wage salary, an annuity after I was done with it. And my job was to go and practice and to work ensembles, and then go do gigs, basically. And then I had to learn how to operate that company. The reason I can do business is because that's all I did for 22 years. I supported the business of our band, of our organization that had different ensembles, all different genres. We weren't one genre instrumentalist. If I played woodwinds, that's what I played. If they assigned me to play in the rock band, I played David Sanborn solos. You know, and then if I wanted to play bebop, I did that on my own and everything else. I think without having something subsidized to that degree, it's almost hit and miss like what we have in the United States, because we're a free country. We do what we want to do. I think that there is a way to get the will of the powers that be that you're talking about, who could manifest something like this at a larger level, if the artists were focused and aware, and we got an audience and we presented a business paradigm like you just described.
Do we
So
not
now
have?
we're talking about artist development, and we're talking about the need for artist development in the jazz genre, right?
Excellent.
Okay, so I'm an Artist Inc. facilitator, had an independent music incubator, and I work with Mid-American Art Alliance and Charlotte Street, and I'm not seeing enough people from my genre, and I'm at the table to help them.
But
'Cause, you know what I mean? They don't know, and they're not pushed.
I'm working directly
do
with
that.
the kids, especially like what I'm seeing. I'm in KCPS school district. I'm in the urban core, and before I used to see more of our kids involved in that. I'm starting to see a lot of the kids that are in the suburban schools that have those support of those programs, and they're getting that information. But we're kind of struggling in that sense where we're
How do
not
we change
getting,
that?
Collaboration?
not only collaboration, but we're like right now we're struggling just with resources and money, and like our kids don't know about. I do it in my class sometimes, but they don't know. They don't have the same information about jazz and as education. I feel like we just now got a fine arts initiative.
How do we change that? In your opinion, how do we change that?
I think it's jazz collaboration.
What were you talking about, Chris, in terms of a firmer structure to do what we're talking about here?
Well, see, these three are at the tip of the spear. They're right there on the front lines. If we had some support and somebody listening to what they're saying, and actually all these great business minds came up with a plan, an organized plan that we could implement within a reasonable amount of time, and then if their higher ups, their infrastructure, see, I don't have to deal with bureaucracy anymore. I don't have to deal with, I don't deal with the things that you do if you're teaching for Kansas City Public Schools or if you're teaching for a university or a college. we do what we want to do. We're not encumbered by that. So we can build a business plan that addresses the things that we see from our perspective and put that in place with good donors and sponsors and tell them what we're doing. What they need is the same sort of support, like what Eddie Moore was doing with the Tribe Studios. That's a solution, and nobody looked at it that way. Nobody, you know, to me, it seemed that way.
Absolutely. So that's why I'm saying I'm on the other side of it, as an artist and an entrepreneur working for other arts foundations. I don't see jazz collaboration. I see a lot of jazz organizations, but I don't see them working together.
Eddie,
I
how
do
would you
see the
change
money
We're
there.
all on each island.
How would you both change
I
that?
mean,
That's what I'm
how
trying
does
to figure out.
how is collaboration fostered? Through conversation, through communication, through vulnerability. So they have to be willing to be vulnerable to sit at the table and come up with some solutions, because the money is there.
It is there.
It is
It's
there.
there.
Can I just add something? 'Cause this is pretty cogent to this discussion. And I'm going to say, well, first, I kind of this comment has a story, and I promise I'll be brief with it. When I was at the University of Colorado in Boulder, we were so many years in line to get a new band room, because our band room was literally the size of this room, and the marching band couldn't fit in this room, nor could the wind ensemble. And so we were in line to be able to get a new band room, but it took OSHA to be able to make that happen. So I witnessed some, and there is a point here. I'm going to get there. I witnessed genius play out through one of my colleagues at CU Boulder. And to all of our disagreements, this was the one thing I agreed on completely. When OSHA was in that building, Alan McMurray, who was the wind ensemble conductor, was conducting, and he heard the guys talking, and he stopped the band, and he said, "Are you guys from OSHA?" "Yeah, we are." And he said, "When are we going to get a new band room?" And he said, "Well, you're scheduled about 15 years from now." And Alan McMurray said, "Okay, guys, I want you to play a B-flat chord at fortissimo." Ah! And guess what the OSHA guys did? "Holy shit! Oh my God!" And he said, "Yeah, that's going to hurt my ears. That's going to hurt everybody's ears here, and we're going to kill people, or people are going to be hurt because you guys didn't put us on the front of the list." Next day, the dean gets a call. OSHA's bumped up getting the new band room to the next project. So they're breaking ground the next year for the new band room, which is now this gorgeous facility. So, a second stroke of brilliance. We had to get permission from the student government to be able to encroach 2 feet out into what they call Farron Park. 2 feet in order to build this monstrosity of a building that was going to be able to have the marching band, the jazz bands, the concert bands, orchestra, everybody playing. So, Alan McMurray, my dear friend, said, he got all the leaders of the section leaders of all the bands together, the section leaders of the marching band. He said, "Okay, who's in student government?" And he said, "Oh, they're usually psych majors or poli-sci majors." He said, "Okay, how many people vote for a student election here?" And he said, "Usually the poly majors, psych majors." Says, "How many of them are there?" "Oh, there's about a couple hundred." And Alan McMurray says, "How many people are in marching band?" "Well, there's 350 in marching band." "Okay." So I want each of you section leaders to run for board for student government. And they did. And then I want you to tell everybody to go vote for you. And they did. And now the board is boom, 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 all from band. So then they go to the board to ask permission to encroach 2 feet into Farron Park. And guess what the president of the board does, who was the drum major of the marching band, says, "Okay, next up for business, we need to approve this." Someone calls a motion, they vote, boom, 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 done. So my point is this. We oftentimes say people in the higher ups need to do ABC. become a higher up, right? So many people think that one person can do it alone. I got my ass kicked at the museum because people felt I needed to develop the whole 18th and Vine district. Remember that, Mike? My job was to bring new housing, new building to the 18th and Vine. But it was also to do an R&B festival and to do a hip hop festival. And our mission was always about jazz, right? So what we did, we started to partner. We got on commissions. We got the city to create an Office of Cultural, whatever it was called. We hired Megan Krieger to come in from Seattle, friends, to do this gig. And she was killing it. And then we got a new mayor. 2 years later, our city suffers from what I call 4-year amnesia. Every 4 years with a new city council, everything goes to shit because people forget about what their commitments are. But we have to be vested at that level, my friends. And it can't just be one person. Fill the seats. Run for city council. Run for mayor. Bring to those positions the heart and the passion that you speak about now, so that when we say, can we get a UNESCO Creative City designation at the level it deserves in this city? And can we get the partnerships that gets cultural awareness at the level that it deserves, like they're doing in France and other countries? And can we get this kind of entrepreneurship and mentorship with kids like they're doing in other countries? You can't do it if there's nobody to vote for it. Does that make sense?
I'm trying.
I rest my case.
I mean, I'll say I'm trying.
By the way, this is not a critical statement.
But also there's people that don't want to leave those seats.
But wait a minute. Let me finish. This is not a
critical
critical statement to any of you guys.
Oh, no, I'm not taking
This is
it personal.
a general statement to everybody here and the people on that internet that are watching. If you want to see this kind of wholesale change, get involved and do all these things that Eddie was talking about.
You're absolutely right.
And Greg Carroll just announced his campaign for mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you're absolutely.
I'll have cards for you and a website up in a minute.
This is and you're right, and it's great to hear that, because to everyone watching, that is the confirmation. But then I would tell you, as I'm trying to do that and I stand my ground, go look at the attitude in which comes to me. Go read my social media and look at the attitude that's coming to me for saying those things, have done everything that I've done to be able to sit here and look at the attitude. And I've said it tons and tons of times, and I tell the young people
going,
mostly,
man.
Our passiveness
You
as a
get a
jazz
lot of
community
backlash.
is not helping. That's true. At all.
Amber, hop in here.
At all.
No, I was just saying, jumping off of him, I mean, I've seen your stuff, and you have gotten some backlash. But some of the stuff is truthful, and he's starting a conversation, probably the hard conversations.
Exactly.
And I think there are
The truth.
some people that are in place in some of these positions that probably need to go ahead and have a couple of seats. And allow, you know, like, I'm not even saying for myself, but there's other people like Eddie and other people that we have to have a hand up to the new generation that's coming up. We are the people that we're looking up to, like,
Exactly.
you know, so there's still no level for us to go. So we're stuck in this purgatory trying to make things happen, but there's still foot on our necks. And the more that I voice my opinion, the more I get shut down or quieted or
Can I add on to
anything.
what she's saying? Because what she is saying, I think, from an outsider, really, because I made my bones in the military. And what she is saying, I just see it all over all civilian jazz. And the reality, if anyone knows anything about the military jazz bands, we have a really great trombone player that I got to know, and I even played some gigs with him, with David Bassett, Kevin Servich. He's in the best jazz band in the world, the Airmen a Note, in D.C. Now, all of the services have those bands in D.C. and I was in the Army, which at the time we employed more professional musicians than anyone on earth, like 3,000. And you had to be pretty good to get in that number because you had to do different things. But the only Army band still to this day that technically legally exists by Congress is the one at Fort Myer, the United States Army Band. The rest of the Army bands that you see, even the reserve ones, they are not a table of organization and equipment organization. They're a modified of the Army Band. And the only reason they exist is because the generals at those other posts, they want their own Army Band too. So they modified the Army Band's TOE for their installation, and they paid for it. Every year I was in an Army Band, and as I rose up from artist, performing artist, to a manager, middle manager, staff NCO, to a senior NCO and a senior manager of the band, I had to understand what they're talking about. And I had to go to that colonel's office with my boss, and we had to literally sell them that we needed reeds because you could not play the same reed for 6 months. No, that sounds
Talk to my
ridiculous.
middle school kids.
That sounds ridiculous. I bet you do that. She does that in a classroom. He does that when he justifies a department budget. See, we're looking at it from the emotional thing that they give us when they play. When she plays her show and she's putting it on, when he's up there just jamming, and I'm going like, man, how do you get there from here? You know, we get touched by that, but we forget on the other side of it, we got to justify a reed, man, to somebody that doesn't know what a reed is, and they think you should use the same reed all year because it isn't broken in half, even though it's brown and it doesn't vibrate anymore. So I'm not saying everybody's idiotic. Like, I'm not trying to put people down like they're ignorant or something, but you have to, someone in the scene, like in my generation, and what we're doing in my generation, I think it's a mandate on my generation to do that, have that talk, and bring some of them with and say, this is what the younger people are doing. This is what we need to sustain. Don't you like? Because we found even the combat bullets and bayonets colonel or general, if you told them the value of what the band does when your tank ran over somebody's kid in Germany on maneuvers, and then the band came back and saved diplomatically what happened, they can understand that. And I think we're not telling that story on the civilian side.
I'm going to go to Justin here, but right after Justin speaks, if you have any questions out here, we'll go to you, then we'll start to wrap because we're going to get a little long here.
So, I mean, I've been kind of processing a couple of things in my head relating to both the idea of the concept of how do we get all of these disparate jazz organizations to the table to present a unified front. Also thinking about like some of the social media backlash that you've dealt with at different points. And then also your comment about like the difference between the military bands and the civilian bands. I think one of the problems that we run into as jazz musicians is that unfortunately, as jazz musicians, we're actually really great at looking out for our own self-interests and not particularly good about looking out for the collective jazz community as a whole, you know? So, you know, Eddie, I think fondly of some of the things that I have observed on your on Facebook comment threads, where it's, well, part of the problem is we talk about the need to like, you know, get people outside, the need for people on the outside to like support us and to deal with, right. But there's building that needs to occur on the inside. And I think a lot of that stems from those of us who are teachers in terms of the values that we give to our students, you know, to think of looking beyond the idea of, you know, well, Eddie may have some good points that he's raising, but at the same time, I've got my comfortable gig, even if it doesn't really pay what I'm worth. But I've got my comfortable gig, so I'm going to go on Eddie's page and like throw backlash his direction because of what he's tossing out with regards to certain things. It's the idea of, you know, being willing to move beyond our own comfort zone and actually pursue the idea of looking at this art form as something that is important for us as artists to work together collectively, to promote, to mentor, to do all of these things to move it forward. Because if we do that, then we've got more of the collective front to enact the kind of change that we're talking about that we want to actually have.
Talking about that with your students regularly,
Yes.
is what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, I know we do.
Yes, sir.
We've got 3 years, actually less, to get in place this collaboration that you're talking about. And June of 2026, the World Cup comes to Kansas City. And Amber, you said people outside of Kansas City don't know anything about Kansas City jazz. I would say actually in Europe they do.
Yeah, in Europe, yeah, overseas, you have to go overseas for that.
This is coming to our doorstep. The city is investing money to expand the streetcar, to expand more hotel rooms. People come to a World Cup, they might go to 1 game, 2 games, they're spending a lot of time.
And then they should be hearing music.
And restaurants, and they need to be going up and down the strip hearing music in all the lobbies and all the restaurants and in all the clubs.
So how are we as a city going to incorporate that into the World Cup so they know that that's what they're going
Will you chair the committee?
to get?
Involved in the
Well,
committee.
here's also what I would say.
The lady actually got a hold of me after Tia's concert and then another concert earlier.
Right.
That we did, I can't remember. She's going to be the chair for some art stuff for FIFA. And said, can we work together? Now I said, absolutely we can work together.
Y'all need to be on the committee.
That. So now,
Eddie.
if we have the door open and
Eddie.
the conversation can begin.
Yes.
Don't get negative on me. Just follow my track here. If we reach out to you and say, okay, I need help from ABC, step up.
Oh no, I got you. We're here.
Reach out first.
There are times, guys, where we do contact
will.
people and ask for help, and we don't get the step up help that we need.
You're right. I agree with you. I totally agree with you as a whole. And I guess my question is, they know about Kansas City jazz in Europe? Do they know any artists that have released anything post 2000? Do they know any 2000 to now Kansas City artists?
One thing when I
That's
did
a
go,
problem.
yeah, one thing when I was
It's
over
2023 and
there,
they're
they would
23
play
now.
all of the older stuff, but not. I'm like, these are some new generation
Well, we
coming
need
up,
to tell 'em.
badass
We
players.
need to tell them.
Well, we need to make a way to shine light on their art.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's one way of many. That's right.
Go ahead.
So, good point. If people come and they know artists that released something prior to 2000, the best way for them to become familiar with today's artists in Kansas City is to come here and hear it.
And then I would ask where, which is what you asked, where is that going to be?
We got to make it happen. We have to make it happen.
I mean, but that's, yeah,
Eddie, we got to make it happen, man.
I know
Yeah.
democracy is like, we all hate it.
But that's not at a jazz venue here right now, actually.
Well, I
You know?
understand that,
Yeah.
but I'm saying you have to start somewhere. So if you're going to start a collaboration, wouldn't you rather try to create what you want and take that to the city
Exactly.
and say, this is what we need support for, instead of going to them and saying, how
Why
are you
aren't
going to
you?
support jazz?
That's
You're
what
gonna support
Yes.
I tried Tribe Studios, and that's exactly what I did.
We go way
And
back.
I just closed them.
Bring them the model. Bring them the model.
Last I heard, they were trying to get the cover over 470 done,
670.
or 670.
South Park, South,
Yeah.
South.
Before the World Cup.
Yeah.
Now's the time to be talking to them about a venue space where jazz can be playing there and getting that done.
And just to illustrate, even when you're participating and you're in the rings with the other lions as a lion, it's also difficult. For example, I was one of 5 artists, probably everybody here doesn't know this. I was hired as one of 5 artists in Kansas City that was responsible for all of the art at the new terminal. It was an 8-month appointment, and our gig was to work with the architectures. They said, okay, here's the dirt, here's the sky, what do you want? So guess what Greg wanted? I wanted performance stages with performative music, and not just jazz, because we have to be mindful of that. There's indigenous folk here too, there's other forms of music, but we really fought for that. Now, not everybody did that, but they were able to work with some vendors at Casey, at the new terminal, that have embedded live music into what they do. Soirees and other couple places there are doing that. And there's opportunities down the road for performative arts because we worked hard to put it on their mindset. This can't just be.
What do you think is the fight? Why do you think it's still not being able to, when you said we worked hard to get that?
M-O-N-E-Y.
Well,
Money.
we have places to perform, which is why people are moving here.
Yeah, so.
The real thing is we're not embracing where the jazz culture in Kansas City really is. And there's no outlet for them. So when they come here by World Cup, they'll go hear jazz, but it'll be what our history presents and not what you should be hearing from year 2000. And there's plenty of that to hear, but as two of them here, I don't play no jazz clubs. They don't support the music that I play. From several aspects, from gear to visuals to if I want projections, you know, all that, they don't do that.
I think that about 10 people in this room are doing exactly what you two are doing.
Yeah, but the fight for that is like, why am I thinking like that? Why do you want to do that? That's not right. You shouldn't.
Why are you telling me what to do with my music?
We don't let Emily's comment go astray, because that is a key piece here. The good potential outcome is how you first build the model and bring that to those who will buy the model.
Make it easy on those who want to buy
Make it easy
it.
on them versus saying you need to do ABC.
Well, do jazz venues want to make money? They're missing money.
Because they don't know what grades are. Do you really think they know what a venue should be like?
Exactly.
Well, my
Way in the back here, Eddie.
yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
sir, way in the back again.
they should.
I was a business person for years and years and years, and what I had, I'm a service business, and what I had to do is to show value, the value that I bring, in order for them to buy my services. If you want to collaborate, you've got to show people the value of your product.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's just not being received because I can personally say I've done that, and I will say, you know, to your comment, it's like if you are gonna open a jazz venue, it is your due diligence and your responsibility to know where the culture of the music is, and to know what to do. And have, if you don't know, then hire the right people that do know, so you can be productive.
You know, this has been a really valuable conversation. Chris Burnett, Vice President of KC Jazz Alive. What's your takeaway today? What are you walking away with?
My one last comment is we are. Okay. Okay.
Governor, I want you to answer the question.
Okay. My last takeaway is this. I'm just going to frame it this way. When I'll just say this, and this should give you a picture. In 1985, one of my favorite band masters, an Army officer, Otrastandis, passed away. He called me in the office. I was one of his senior people. He says, "Chris, look at this." And he pulled out this architectural thing of this nice facility, like a band facility. I said, "Are we getting that?" He goes, "Yeah, we're getting it, but you'll be long gone by the time they get this. But this is what we just did." And I didn't understand that for years until 1995, near the end of my career. I was called over to the headquarters before they had Zoom and all of this stuff, and we just did this video teleconference. They chose a half a dozen of us to confer on what Army bands would be like with budgets and things like that, and we said, "This is what we want, blah, blah, blah." They said, "Okay, we'll get that for you." And we were like, "Yeah, but you'll never see it." And now they have that now. They have a budget that they're not diversely, some scrimping, some have feast, famine. They have facilities where you actually, it's built for the band, and all of that took like only 40 years. So if the work that we're talking about here, the work that Jazz Alive does, the work that most of us are doing now that we're grown-ups and part of the infrastructure, educating the young, creating great art, and perpetuating the art form, most of our work, we'll never see it. Right. So we just need to keep pouring into the scene, and most of us need to realize that why we're doing it. You know, for me,
there's a point that's been made here that 2026 is a looming deadline.
Well, that's a project. We can do that.
Yeah.
But the long-term infrastructure piece, the things that can be done, we need to understand that not all of it, we're not going to see a lot of it, but we have to keep going toward that end goal. That's what I'm taking from this.
We got to wrap. I want to thank Amber, Eddie, Justin, and Chris. Give them a big round of applause. Good comments, good discussion. Thanks this is as good a discussion as we've had here in these sessions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you all very
Steve
much.
Kraske, thank you.